Thanks for visiting the patient and the weather today. I'm meteorologist Al Peterlin. I'd like to talk about the weather health stress for June 8th, 2026. Looks like we will be keeping additional graphics at tpatw.com. We also maintain the storefront on patient weather. Our weather map for today is a little bit complex and a lot more activity happening. We do have a new cold front trying to push into the Pacific Northwest. And notice we have this meandering or snaking weather front stretching all the way from Great Salt Lake, all the way through Colorado, Denver, back up through Kansas, all the way up to Chicago, back down to Raleigh and out to sea. Little bit of high pressure pushing down the northeast, and we still have a significant southerly flow building up through the plains, and that'll keep unsettled weather across the Ohio and Mississippi valleys. Looking at our vitality index, which is a measure of the individual elements that could cause some health issues in a sensitive individual, and you can see we have a lot of things going on here in Northern California up into Oregon. Lots of activity, especially up here in the northern plains. A little bubble of activity down here in New Mexico, and still some activity down in Texas into Oklahoma City. Note we also have some activity going on in the New England or northeastern portions of the country. Looking at pressure change, that's always of interest to many with migraines, arthritis, and other issues. We have falling pressure trying to come through Vancouver down into the westernmost areas of Washington and Oregon. But rising pressure will be the story. Up the plains, especially in the northern plains, most significant in the western half of the Dakotas, a little bit of rising pressure here back in West Texas, and significantly rising pressure from eastern North Carolina through Virginia up into Maryland, across eastern Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and up into New England, across Connecticut, Massachusetts, and the southern and easternmost portions of Maine. Temperature changes, pretty seasonal, lots of nice warm summer temperatures, but note that we have a bubble of warmth running here across Montana and Wyoming. A little bit more bubble warmth into the plains, the eastern plains, Kansas, into Iowa. Interesting, some cooling right here in the westernmost portion of the Dakotas, and that'll be significant with some unsettled weather and some maybe severe activity where we have that strict change from very warm temperatures to very falling temperatures. Looking at the changes in dew point temperatures, you see we're pushing up a lot of moisture, or pushing in a lot of moisture into the Pacific Northwest, and we're still having a little flow of moisture trying to get up into especially the high plains. Looking at vapor pressure, which sometimes can be a little more intense, you can see that we do have some rising vapor pressure here in Iowa and some portions here of the western Ohio Valley, and that may portend something for showers and thunder showers. Looking at instability, again, we have the focus of instability across Texas, probably Dallas and Oklahoma City, but we also have some very significant instability up here in the Dakotas. And while not overbearing, there is some instability still here in the western Ohio Valley. Looking at the change in oxygen availability, and this is a lot of hazardous hit and miss. We have lots of migraine risk here in Northern California to the coastal areas of Washington, Oregon. Note a risk of migraine again in southern Nevada. We have a very elevated risk of migraine from the westernmost portions of South Dakota, easternmost portions of Wyoming, and covering all of North Dakota. Note we have a bubble of migraine risk here in north central New Mexico, a bubble of migraine risk here in south central Texas. We also have migraine risk here in the Ohio Valley, southernmost areas of Indiana, Illinois, and across Kentucky, but it also stretches down into Georgia. And then a more elevated risk of migraine again from eastern North Carolina, most of Virginia, up into Maryland, New Jersey, Connecticut, Massachusetts, and off the sea. We have the risk of asthma and arthritis, pretty typical here in Montana and Idaho, And then asthma and arthritis risk across Iowa, Nebraska into Kansas, and a little bubble trying to reach down into Arkansas. We also have a bubble of arthritis and asthma risk across Michigan into northern Ohio. Thanks for visiting the patient and the weather. Your comments are appreciated, and if you hurt, tell us where you're located.